I would like to talk to us about worship. And I want to highlight this concept of worship out of the life of a woman that we find in John chapter 4. Now, I don't want to read the whole passage, but I want to highlight certain things out of this conversation with Jesus and the woman at the well. The first thing that I want to talk to us about, and we find this in John chapter 4, verse 10. Jesus answered her and said, "If you knew the gift of God, who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." Now, we all know the story about Jesus meeting up with this woman at the well and the conversation that proceeded after that. And it's amazing how Jesus all along was dealing with this woman on every aspect of her life. First, he tackles the concept or the idea of the tradition, challenges the idea and the concept of the social and cultural issues. And then he touches on the most critical part, and that is the part of her sin, the sinful life that she's been living. And after dealing with all of these variant aspects of her life, he then proceeds to talk about something which I believe is critical in the life of a believer. And that's about the area of worship. And I'm going to pick up from verse 19, and then we're just going to read all the way through. The woman said to her, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where we ought to worship." Jesus says to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when we will neither worship on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We know who we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such worshipers." There's three things that I would like to talk about when it comes to worship. The very first thing that Jesus speaks about, and this woman is highlighting, is the area of where. She was focused on where is the place that one should worship. And Jesus is leading her from the idea of having a set place to moving over, not to just focusing on where, but he's speaking about when. And there's a transition that you and I have to come to believe and come to hold fast. And that is that if we just have a concept of, if we just have the where as our focus of worship, we will miss out. We will miss out because we have moved from having a set place to worship. We have moved from having a Sunday kind of worship to a place where we worship when we worship. That's the very first thing that I would like us to talk about. Remember, I always say that there's the WWH. So the first W is the where. And it's amazing how Jesus helps us to understand that it's not just about the where, but it is about the when. And when is not just to have a set time, but it is whenever we want to come into that place. It's whenever we feel the need, whenever there is something to bring worship to. The second thing that he speaks about is about who. She refers to her forefathers. And that speaks to us about the idea of tradition. She comes out of a place of worshiping from tradition. Our forefathers worship at this mountain. And I think it's where a lot of us find ourselves, whether we come into a place where we worship out of tradition. This is how our forefathers did it. We did it in this way. We did it in that way. And Jesus highlights the idea that worship is not just about following a set of traditions, but worshiping is about worshiping the person. It is about coming into a personal relationship. And out of that place, we come to a place of true worship. True worship will never take place if we're just worshiping out of tradition, if it's just us coming to a place of worshiping because we have to worship. But true worship springs from a revelation of who God is. True worship comes from a place of knowing who Jesus is and what He has done for us. And out of that place, we can render worship unto God. The last thing that I want to highlight, and I want to touch on this, is how. It speaks about how. Says that the Father is looking for those that will worship Him in spirit and in truth. If we do not come to a place of worshiping out of that which is truthful and out of a place of our spirit, we will miss it. We will miss it if we don't know that worship is not just about the place. It is not just about the Sunday worship. We will miss it if we have limited idea and limited focus on who. We have to come to a place of knowing who He is and what He has done. And out of that place, render our true and living worship unto God. I bless you with this.